Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to YouTube Model Builders Live Show. I'm your host, Big Bill Graham. It's June 20th, 2015 on a Saturday evening. We're having a live show tonight, and we're welcoming Geno Sharp as well as Miles Hale with us tonight. And Dude is taking over the directorial ship.
Hi, Bill.
How you doing, Miles? Geno? I'm sorry, I do apologize.
Doing good, sir.
Dude is taking over the directorial ship for Barry because Barry has some work issues at his job that he needs to take care of since he's the chief cook and bottle washer over there. He's on call, so he's fixing a problem that they're having, a major glitch in their system. But we have Geno Sharp from Birmingham Beltline Railroad, and we have Miles Hale. From us, if you all know, from Trainmasters TV, as well as the College of Model Railroading, well known in the community. And tonight's topic is going to be on terrain building, scenery, and weathering of our scenery, of our scenes, and stuff like that. I think we lost Dude.
Nope, I'm here.
Do you have the Q&A up so that the community can put?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let me see. Okay, there it is. I got it now. There we go. So, gentlemen, tonight's topic is going to be on terrain and weathering and scenery building and getting that thing down. But before we start, let's give a shout out to our sponsors who we have so graciously have given us gifts for tonight to give away to you guys. And before we start this and introduce and let these gentlemen give a little talk about themselves, Dude, if you can put up those splash pages, the YouTube Model Builders thing first. Yeah, here we go. YouTube Model Builders is we have a free online magazine called the eMag. You can go to www.youtubemodelbuilders.com and you can sign up for a free subscription. It's absolutely free. And you know what they say, when it's free, it's for me. And we have hangouts on Tuesdays and Thursday nights with Barry, Mike Dettinger, Troy, and John Southeast Rails, Johnny Reb, Southeast Rails, and our own Geno too. He hosts a hangout. And obviously you're on the YouTube Model Builders Live Show. You're watching it here. And we do this once a month, the third weekend, the third Saturday of every month. And we come to you live, and then we do a rebroadcast afterwards. If you miss it tonight, you can always go back and check us out later at your convenience. And on to our sponsors. Now, oh, I forgot, this is most important. YouTube Model Builders. Thank you there. Dude is doing a great job here, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube Model Builders, the big build contest hosted by MRRO.com. It's build a model railroad structure and put your build on YouTube. You can be eligible to win great prizes. Again, for more information, go to www.modelbuilders.com. It's hosted by Eric Hall. He's sponsoring it, and we have some cash prizes that are pretty good, and a couple of other secondary prizes. But if you guys are in, you don't have to be a major scratch builder. You don't have to be, up there an MRA master builder. If you are, great, you can still enter. But if this is a new venture for you, take a shot at it. Take a shot. As they say in Lotto, if you're not in it, you can't win it. Okay. And who's our next? That's YouTube Model Builders eMag, free online. I think we have Dave Decals. There we go, Dave's Decals, model decals and stuff. Your choice of 2 sheets. If you win this tonight, you get a choice of any 2 sheets that Dave has on his site. He has plenty of them, and you can get more information by looking at www.daveart.net. I just recently ordered some decals from Dave, and they're pretty spectacular for my one of the buildings I'm building. He's pretty detailed orientated, and he wants to make sure he gets the job right. So you guys should check him out. And also tonight from Long Shadows Model Trees, we have 6HO or N scale handmade trees that will be given out. from Long Shadow Model Trees, Bob Lacey. Thank you very much, Bob, for that. And who else? And, oh, from our good friends from Central Valley Model Works, we have the Punch Plate Bridge Kit. It's a 150-foot HO scale punch plate bridge kit, and you can see there's products as well as this bridge. The bridge you actually see on there is the one that's being given away. It's at www.cvmw.com, and they've been with us since the beginning as well. And Precision Design Company is giving away joint bars, either in HO or N scale, if you're an N scaler, obviously, or an HO. And those where the penny is the actual size of them. And these are pretty good. I know some guys that have ordered them, and they're pretty realistic looking. And as you can see on the picture, they are. And they're from Precision Design Company, joint bars in either HO or N scale, depending on the scale you're modeling in. And also from our good friend John Howard, road striping. It's either going to be HO scale or N scale, and they're pretty good. Geno Sharp has some experience with this, and he loves the product. And John Howard is a good friend of ours here at YouTube Model Builders, and he makes a good product, and it's worth it. So if you guys win, those will be the prizes, and later on we'll announce the password for the show and tell you how to get on to the website to register for the prizes. So anyway, gentlemen,
yeah, Bill, just to let them know, I do have the screen up there on how to win. You just go to the YouTubeModelBuilders.com and fill out the live show giveaway form, and then at the end of the show, we'll give you the code to go ahead and collect the winners on that. I just wanted to throw that in on there.
Absolutely, dude. Dude is taking over direct. Like I said earlier, dude's taking over direct.
There is one other thing I want to bring up. JD from the E-Mag is doing a new thing right now for the July issue for all the younger generation of the model railroaders out there to get involved in the E-Mag and to do articles and pictures of some of their layouts that they're doing. So any of you youngsters out there that if you want to get involved in some really cool stuff, contact. All that information is really all over the internet, plus it's on the G Plus site, and if you go to the, I think it's on the website too, actually, to contact JD on that.
All right, that's cool. You can contact JD through the e-magazine on our website at modelbuilders.com. Anyway, getting back to our show, it's June 20th. It's Saturday, and we're ready to rock and roll here. So anyway, Miles, introduce yourself to the community. If nobody knows who you are, then they've been living their last 20-some-odd years on Mars.
Can you hear me?
But go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Since I don't have the picture up, I can't tell if I'm on or not. Miles Hale, I worked for KD Microtrains, Intermountain, Woodland Scenics. Worked for Bob Lundy building layouts for a while, professional model maker. Used to build layouts for a living, now retired, trying to build a railroad like everybody else.
And a hell of a nice guy.
I don't know about that, but I'm trying to build a railroad. Right now I'm trying to get my picture.
And Mr. Sharp.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm the current caretaker of the Birmingham Beltline layout. This will be my fourth layout that's under construction, and hopefully it will be one of the last, maybe, if I can get it like I want it this time. But retired deputy sheriff, was a deputy sheriff for 21 years, and now I sit on the front porch and play with trains.
There you go. Sounds like a plan. I love it. And dude, a little bit about yourself, since you're the first timer here on the show.
I'm Dud Lindler from Crooked Fingers Railroad. I'm the one that's been has actually started the Tuesday night presentations. Now we've got something a little bit further going on. There's actually 4 of us that do once a month. It really takes a lot off my shoulders. I'm HO scale. My layout's about 11 by 12 with a 6-foot helix. Everybody's probably seen videos. You know, just go to. It's Dud Lindler at I think it's just go to Crooked Fingers on YouTube and you'll find it. But anyways, I've been in the hobby for about 20 years now. I've got into little RC racing at during my little break of trains, but I got out of RC and back full force into trains. And just let everybody know I'm in Idaho, northern Idaho.
Yes, Northern Idaho, yes. And Geno Sharp also has a YouTube model builders YouTube channel that he does a monthly video blog on, and you guys should check out his stuff because his stuff is really great. Tonight's topic, again, is weathering, scenery, terrain building, and scenery setup. And I think I'll kick it off. When you guys are setting up your scene on a particular layout, do you guys, on the whole, when your layout, now Miles and Geno, I've seen both, and Duty, I've seen your layouts on film. Do you think in the overall composition of your layout, or do you take it in sections at a time and layer it, if you know what I mean? Or is it something that you, I think we lost Miles, he'll probably be back. So do you think through it, or do you do it one section at a time and just work on it?
I used to and try to come up with the whole concept at one time for the whole layout, and I found it to be rather overwhelming at times, trying to come up with something. So I've kind of graduated to I take it scene by scene, and it's easier to tie the scenes together for me when I do it that way, because you're moving directly from one scene to the other.
Right. So
you have an overall concept, but step by step to get there.
Right. So you're continuing the theme as you go along.
Correct.
And when you're building a scene, dude, when you're building a scene on your railroad, dude, is it primarily what era do you do?
I do probably mid to late 80s to the present day. Actually, I shouldn't say present day, to probably 2000. I don't really. My first plan was to build, to copy an actual Burlington Northern Union Pacific branch. Well, it's not a branch line; it's a joint line between Spokane, Washington, and Bellingham, Washington. That goes through Snoqualmie Pass. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Cascade Tunnel. It's almost 8 miles long. I was going to replicate that, but I didn't have the space to do it, so I'm just doing sections of it, and then eventually, if I ever do expand into the rest of my basement I've got, then I will go ahead and finish that. I do about the same thing as Geno. I kind of think about the area that I'm working on at the time, and then really there's sections of mine's a double-decker, of course. So it kind of transitions from one section to another with not much. It's you got to sometimes just think in your head and how you want to transfer it from scene to scene.
Right. Do you gentlemen do any kind of book research on your particular layouts that you're designing when it comes to scenery and terrains? Do you try to mimic it as close as possible? Give that to Miles. Oh, Miles is having a little technical difficulty.
I'll put some on that, Bill.
Sure, go right ahead, dude.
We've got in my layout, if you guys watched my video, I've got a river scene, and I've been taking a few pictures. I have taken a few, but I'm going to take pictures of hillsides on the opposite side where the track is at, and on the opposite side where there's no track, because we have a section here in my hometown that has a branch line that goes right down next to the river. And so I'm going to take some of that and do, some background scenery off of that, etc., because it's right next to a river, Right. And so yeah, I think it's a good idea to go out and actually either take pictures or even use the internet to your advantage. You've got Google Maps, you can get a lot of it there.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially doing a prototype scene, if you're modeling a prototype location. I've bought and researched just about anything I can on Birmingham and the railroads, and it has been an enormous help when planning scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. I myself have been using my experience when I worked for the Transit Authority for the South Brooklyn, since I grew up in South Brooklyn. So, I'm using those in the factories down there in the terminal, push terminal and stuff like that. So.
Well, sounds like we got Miles back, maybe.
I think we do.
You got me?
Hello, Miles.
Really? You got me?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
We only have your sound. We still don't have no picture.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, sounds better than nothing.
Sounds good. Sounds
That's
good.
Right.
Hey, we have a question from Terry Tuscini. Listen to that, Terry. Did you hear that I got your last name right, Terry? Question to all: what is your favorite medium to use when modeling basic terrain, and what do most of you use for making rocks and outcrops?
Hold on, I'm still not seeing.
Question to all the favorite media to model terrain.
I use a lot of the card foam. Is what I've been using lately. But in some areas I've still used the balled up newspaper and plaster cloth. But the card foam is doing what I want it to do right now.
Okay. What I use for underlayment. Hello?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Miles.
Okay. For doing scenery? Either foam or plaster cloth?
Well, he wants to know. Terry wants to know what when modeling basic terrain, what do most of you use for making rocks and outcropping?
Plaster.
Plaster. Plaster. Yes. Plaster over.
I'm a plaster guy. So.
I know. I heard last night on your first rail.
At length, right?
I'm kind of a. I don't have no set way of how I do a lot of my scenery. I mean, I like to use the foam. I like the plaster cloth. I even use plaster and paper towels. I go and buy the basic Walmart brand. I found out that they can hold a lot of plaster without ripping and a lot of moisture without ripping. So the more plaster, the more it turns it into the plaster cloth. So, I mean, if you're going to get into different types of scenery, I'm one of those ones that I think that if you take a small, 9x9 section of wood and put a track on it and experiment with different types instead of in an area and you don't like it and then you have you're like, oh, what do I do? Tear it all out, Yeah. So.
Well, Miles, there seems to be some sort of a background noise. Are you doing something in the room or moving something?
I turned the fan off. I hope that killed some of the noise. Otherwise, I don't know.
All right. Okay. I think that, yeah, now you sound better. Now it sounds much clearer.
Okay.
I think on what you just said now, dude, is very thing, and I'd like to bring something up that I think Miles can expand upon last night. It's a nice thing to do with the rocks and everything, but something that Miles said that was on a hangout the other night, where he said that when you said about the uniformity of the rocks themselves, Miles, where a lot of guys, you go to layouts and they show you the rocks, and then you notice that the rocks really aren't, conclusive or uniform all the way, like a strata rock or, and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had a real good friend, Orphe, down in San Antonio, a friend of John Lawrence's. And Orphe is, or was, a geologist. He's since passed away. He was the lead geologist for Phillips 66 in New York City. I mean, the guru of finding. But his big thing was rocks. And what Orphe always said was that most people don't observe rocks in terms of how they form naturally. We go out and we buy rock castings, and I was guilty of this until I met Orphy probably 10 years ago, I guess. You take rocks and you do them in what I would have called the old polka dot system. You put one up here, you put one down here, you put one up here. Doesn't make any difference if they're matched or whatever, you just put them there because they look good. But in Mother Nature, if you look around in the East, in the Midwest, out in Colorado, whatever, rock runs in strata. So I usually try to, I have probably 30 or 40 of Bragdon's moles. He has a series of moles, like 4 or 5 of them. Take those 4 or 5 and put them all, let's say, at 3 feet above the floor all the way around my layout. Whenever I put a rock in, I use that 5 set. Now I may have a different set of 5 moles that I use at the 4 foot level, and I always use those at the 4 foot. So what Orphy was saying was, whatever you got, it kind of stratas around your railroad, and it needs to be that way as you put it in.
Oh, we lost him again.
Yeah, a little technical difficulty out there in Kansas. Split rock. What?
We do have another question up there too, Bill.
I was just going to go to it. Split Rock 323 Thomas is asking, what manufacturer or maker of brick material blank sheets do you prefer for scratch building or kit bashing structures?
I've been using lately on the past 3 or 4 buildings I've done. I get the brick sheets from Micromart. They come in 8, and I think there's 2 or 3 sheets to pack, and it's pretty good stuff.
I've used and seen used too. I've used a couple of them of the Scenics, Woodland Scenics. The Woodland Scenics is pretty good. Brick material, and I don't know if Miles has tried this, but I made some plaster of bricks. I made some clay and made my own bricks and poured a little bit of plaster down in there, and then when I do plaster like up on a wall or something, I'll just put it up against there and make my own brick. I've tried it that way, and that works out pretty good too as well when it's wet.
What do you mean, like an imprint?
Like an imprint, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. How did you make that?
Like I said, I took a piece of clay and made me a little pocket, and then after I carved in the brick, I just carved the brick in there with an X-Acto knife,
right,
and then just poured a light layer, about 3/16 of an inch in the bottom of it, let it hard, pulled it out of there, and then where I'm going to do the brickwork, I put plaster up there, and when it's still moist, not wet, I just imprint it up on there and use some release so it doesn't stick, of course, and just did that and then overlapped it, so it turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
And I've got some areas that I'm going to try that again, that it works out pretty good. It looks more realistic because you can actually weather it. I don't know if the Micromart, if it's plastic or cloth or whatever it is, but I know like the Woodland Scenics is either plastic, or you can get it in cardboard strips or paper strips or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, the Micromart stuff, it's a plastic sheet, and I think a lot of you've seen the pictures of the wall that I had on the Central City Beltline layout, and it was made from that. And I said it's pretty workable. It takes paint and stain a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Signal Fan asks, what seems to give the best results on weathering freight car trucks and wheels? Do you use an airbrush spray? Dry brushing it on, or alcohol base wash application, or chalks?
There you go, Geno. It's all you.
That's it, baby. That question was designed for you, Geno.
I don't use an airbrush. I use the alcohol and acrylic paint, and I'll brush on the trucks and the wheels, and then I'll come back with some light chalk and dab it before the paint dries.
Before the paint dries?
Yeah, just so the chalk will give the paint a little bit of texture on the truck.
How about when you're weathering, okay, the freight car trucks? Let's see if the bears are weathering freight car. Okay, trucks and wheels to use in amber. Okay, I get it. I was going to go someplace else with this, but then I reread the question. My fault. My bad. My bad. And stuff. So with the alcohol paint wash, that's what you use, an alcohol paint wash on that?
I do. Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, how long does that take to dry? I mean, what's your play time with that?
The alcohol, you know, it evaporates rather quickly. And you can come back and do multiple layers or multiple washes until you get the look that you want. Now on the wheels, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take just straight paint and go ahead and like a rust-colored paint, and then paint the wheel, and then come back over it with some washes just to kind of fade it down and dull it.
Okay. Here's a question from B. Otto about washes. What is the proper and/or suggested mixture that you guys recommend? Preference on black washes versus white washes?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Geno. Go ahead.
I don't measure. I'm guilty of that. I just kind of, you know, the paint versus alcohol, you know, the more paint, the thicker the wash is going to be, and the darker it's going to dry. I tend more use, you know, like 2-to-1 alcohol versus paint. Then I'll go back with multiple layers to kind of get the color that I want.
Uh-huh. You're having a little lag on your video there. On the mixture thing, I'm not a big. We get an echo. I think you're echoing. Hold on.
It's Miles.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, on the mixture type of measuring, I'm the same way with Geno. I don't, I don't measure it out, and I'm guilty of that. I should, but I don't. I kind of go what feels good, and if it's too light, then I just darken it. And as far as the whitewashes are concerned, I've never really. What would you say the whitewashes? I've never really had an opportunity to use that other than chalks, but anyone?
I'll mix up a little white paint and alcohol if I want to fade it light.
Yeah.
Then you can add a little black to that to kind of get a gray color. You can, you know, just kind of variation in your grays versus your whites. And a lot of it depends on what area, you know, what area of the country you're modeling.
Yeah, that's true too.
What your fade's gonna look like.
Yeah, Southeast, Midwest, Western states, different types of dirt and grit that get on the equipment and stuff. What's our next question here? From Aaron Savanan. Excuse me if I pronounced your name wrong, Aaron. Hello, panel. When using weathering chalks, what is your method to applying it and keeping it in place? Second, how hot? Well, let's answer this in a two-part question. When using weathering chalks, what is your method to applying it and keeping it in place? Part one of the question. We'll come to the second part, Aaron, in a second. Anybody want to take this? Miles, can you hear us? I'm having technical difficulty.
Is he still muted?
Miles.
Well,
he may be muted, Bill.
I think he's unmuted now. Anyway, what say you to the remaining members of the panel? What methods do you applying it and keeping it in place?
Makeup brushes are the best thing as far as applying to like structures and stationary objects I've found. The facial brushes is a good applicator for it.
Yeah, that's good. And what do you keep it in place? Do you put a little dull coat, clear dull coat on it?
I don't seal my buildings. Most of the time when they're in, I put them in place. I don't plan on moving them. But I can, get them and go back and touch them up if I need to. But I don't seal the chalk onto the structures.
Okay. Miles, can you hear us now?
Huh.
Nope. The second part of this question is, how hard is it to make your own weathering powders? I've been successful making iron oxide rust, but that's it. I don't think it's too hard to make the weathering powders. If you go to Walmart, they sell those chalks. I think Geno has that.
I do.
That's what he's reaching for. Go for it, Geno.
$1 cheese grater and a bag of chalks from Walmart.
There you go.
It don't get no simpler than that.
There you go.
And the cheese grater has a nice little catcher in it.
It does. It does. And you're good to go.
Man, oh man, brother, I'm telling you. I don't care what they say about you, Geno. And Terry Tsumi, he says, when planning your scenery, do you use cardboard cutouts for basic profiles of your terrain like hills or embankments?
I don't cut. I use cardboard for like cardboard mesh before like paper cloth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually cut it out to make, I know that I will, like if it's a tip of a hillside or something like that, I'll cut a piece of cardboard so it stands upright, and then I'll put the cardboard mesh to that. The only issue that I've seen with that in the past is, strength. So sometimes you might want to, it depends on what the width is. Looks like Miles has got his camera back.
Yeah, Miles. Looks like you're up and running.
But anyways,
Hold on.
I
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear
talking.
you. Yes. Yes.
Yes. We can hear you and see you, sir.
That's a miracle.
God bless America. God bless America for that computer that's made in China.
Yeah, no kidding. This is on the Mac. It's not even on my good camera, so.
That's all right. You're coming in loud and clear. You look good, Miles.
Okay.
There you go. So, Miles, let's get you into the fray here. When you're planning your scenery, do you use cardboard cutouts or for basic profiles of your terrain like hills or embankments?
I usually have somewhat of an idea of where I'm going to go with it, and of late, and that's the last 5 to 10 years, I found a supplier here in Kansas City of EPS board that's expanded polystyrene. It's the white bead board that's back here behind me, and I buy it. A billet to these companies is a piece that is 4 feet wide, 3 feet thick, and 16 feet long. So I buy a half billet at a time, which is 4 by 3 by 8, and I have them slice it into 4-inch pieces, which is what I have back here. And then I use the liquid nails, if I need to piece those together to build it up, if I'm doing a mountain-type railroad. Excuse me. And then I take a hot wire and begin to basically shape it. So no, excuse me, I don't really try to mock up. I just start shaping and have some kind of a mental idea of what I'm going to do in the process.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
There's just one tool that I use, and I could get it when we take a break. It's sold at Sears. It's a rust removal wheel. It's a piece of, what do I want to say, Scotch-Brite, usually round, about 5 to 6 inches around. It chucks up in your drill, and you can get it in different widths from a 1/4 inch up to over 1 inch wide. And that thing actually is phenomenal for shaping this foam. And I just take that on a drill and run it around, and you say, well, yeah, but you're going to get beads everywhere. Well, I also take my vacuum in my left hand, the drill in my right, and I follow everywhere I go with that vacuum. So no matter what I do, I'm sucking those beads as I grind. But it makes it absolutely, it makes you feel like you're Rembrandt or Da Vinci or somebody carving the it really empowers you.
Yes.
You can carve your valleys and rills, and it just, you get into it after a little bit and you just go crazy with it.
So much like God, except with a small G instead of a capital G.
That's
You know, I want
yes,
to
yeah.
I want to add some to that, what Miles is talking about, because that's what I use, is the thing that I use. I get one that's about this big and one that's about that big, and plus I'll use even like a wire wheel that works out really good too. And like Miles said, everybody says, well, you're going to make a heck of a mess, and I held the drill in one hand and the vacuum in the other, or where I'm going to be working, I put the vacuum right there, and so I can use both hands.
That's called working smart.
Yeah, if you go to Tools and More now, I'll give you another tip. They make those Scotch-Brite things as little balls that you can buy that chuck in the drill. They're about 3-4 inches around. I mean, you can get them in all kinds of different shapes and different grades, and you can smooth that foam anywhere from really rough to really smooth, depending on what kind of texture you want under your landscape base coat paint.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's Geno showing one. That's a small one, but that's a Dremel size there.
While we've got this moment there, let's do the giveaways now, because it's about we're halfway, not halfway, but we're 37 minutes into the show, and usually we do 30 minutes. So if we can go to the splash pages, Geno, and just go through the giveaways, and this will give us. You can have a sip there, as long as it's a non-alcoholic beverage.
I drink Dr. Pepper whether it's time or not. I cough too much.
Yeah, I love Dr. Pepper. Here we go with the YouTube model builders. Here we go. Dave's Decals. Dave's Decals. Model decals and stuff. Your choice of 2 sheets if you win tonight. You go to his website at www.daveart.net. Pick any 2 of the sheets that he has there. And he'd be more than happy to send it. He has a plethora of sheets of decals. I recently got some decals made up. I got them right here, actually. I got Dave's decals right here. He did a great job for me, and I would recommend them highly to you. And he pays very much attention to detail, and he's very much into working with you. What's the next? Oh, and from Long Shadow's Model Trees, we have 6 HO or N scale handmade oak trees. I believe there's some other trees that he's giving away, but due to Barry being away, we couldn't get the newer picture up. But there will be 6 HO or N scale trees. Whoever wins tonight from Long.
Yeah, I think they're a fall edition trees that he's giving away this time. Mm-hmm.
Right, from Long Shadow Model Tree, who does great jobs. And our friends from Central Valley Model Works Incorporated, they're giving away a 150-foot HO scale punch plate bridge kit. The picture that you see on your computer is, or wherever you're viewing this from, is the bridge that they'll be giving away. And you can find them at www.cvmw.com. And from Precision Design Company, we'll be giving away joint bars, either in HO or N scale. As you can see, there's a penny to give you the size differential, and also a picture of them actually on the rail. They add a little realism to your track. As we heard recently in a hangout, track is a model too. So these just dress up your tracks, and Precision Design Company does an excellent job. Our good friend John Howard is giving away road striping kit from Highways and Byways, and as you can see, that's the road striping kit. Geno and a few other guys, Ron Pierre, have used them on their layouts and dioramas, and they have worked well for them. So I believe that's it, right, dude?
Yes, sir.
So there we are. Then Aaron again. Aaron, hey Aaron, how are you? What is the most realistic method to create convincing moss and climbing vines on a layout on a poor man's budget? I've never myself had tried to do the climbing vines or moss, but
Did you ask
I
me?
think
I'm sorry, I
Miles
had
would
my
be a good
mic
one
off.
for that.
Yeah.
yeah, Miles.
Most convincing method for creating moss and climbing vines. Elmer's glue.
On a poor man's
What's
budget.
that? Yeah, Elmer's glue. Paint it on in the pattern of a vine, and then whatever you're going to use for foam, and either put it down flat and dust it on, collect the extra in a newspaper so you can reuse it, or you can do the fly specking technique that we talked about on the wooden sinks things. Take a piece of paper, throw your ground foam on here, curve it a little bit, and blow it right onto the vertical surface that you're trying to cover. Again, I'd do it on a piece of newspaper or something so you can collect the excess. But you could actually paint those vines on and do absolutely a fantastic job. I did an East Coast diorama once when we had the convention back in Scranton, I believe it was, or someplace back there in the East for Woodland Scenics. And I did an East Coast rock face. And what I did there was I actually took some of the green paint that they sell for ground cover, mixed it down so that it was much thinner, and then kind of painted that into the cracks and crevices so it looked like that moss and that kind of wet rock ooze that you get not only in the East Coast but also here sometimes in the Midwest.
Right. I see we have trees on the layout in the background there.
I went and ran and got it, yes, while you were on break. I wanted you to see a scale tree. It's so big you can't even fit it in the camera, you know. This is an O-scale tree. I talked about this, I think, last night. Most people don't understand that trees really are very, very large. My ones that I have back here are standing, 16 or so inches, and those are, if O-scale at 50 feet to the foot, those are barely 60 or 70 foot trees, so they're really not that tall, because most of the trees probably around your house run 75 to 100 if they're mature. So in an HO, you better have a tree that's at least a foot or so tall. And Woodland Scenics and everybody else, they make them in 8, 9 inches maybe, but they don't really get up high enough to really be full scale. The good side of that is it doesn't make any difference because our minds are so trained to look at the smaller trees and accept them that we do. But if you really want to be scale about it, you need to be much bigger. The problem and the drawback of that, I'll get another one for you over here. A friend of mine made. A guy in Louisville that used to make these little guys. And this thing is about 12 inches tall. That would be an HO tree. But the problem with it is that most trees, when you go to scale out trees, if it's this tall, it's probably almost that wide. And are you willing to give up? This is going to take up a little less than a square foot. I'll get it out here where you see it. It's going to take up almost a square foot of your railroad. Willing to give that up? Maybe not, you know.
Right.
So you kind of have to compromise on trees in terms of volume and size and height and that kind of stuff to make them look right. Comes back to illusion. What looks good to you?
Yes, very true.
Yep.
Very true. Very true. And what it is that you're trying to convey to the like you said, to the mind's eye, because we get tricked, because everything about our model railroads is an illusion. We're tricking the eye into believing, or
That's
tricking
right.
the mind into believing what we're seeing is, you know, a replica of what realism is. You know.
Yes.
I remember when I first got into the hobby and I was in a model railroading club, and one of the jobs they gave the new guys was to make trees. and a lot of trees. And
Suckered you on that one, didn't they?
yeah, they did, you know. But I remember making the trees, and one of the guys that were there, he's a long-time modeler, older gentleman, great guy. He said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm making a tree." He goes, "Why are you making them so straight?" I said, "Well, that's what trees are." He goes, "Trees aren't straight." And he took me out to the outside, and he said, "Pick a tree." He says, "Any tree." And I did. I said, "Let's walk up." And we walked up to the tree, and he was like, "Does this look like a straight tree to you?" He says, "Don't worry about it. No one's going to criticize you for having a crooked tree. Trees are meant to be crooked."
That's right.
So, you know, that's one of the things I've taken away from that, is that, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. So,
yeah.
Scott McDonald from SMX, when doing roads, what is the best way to weathering it and sealing it?
Well, okay. It's going to depend somewhat on what road. The roads that I did over here for the TV show are streets, and they're done in styrene. And sorry, since I got the good camera to work, I'll take advantage of it. These are all done in styrene. I think I've even got this guy hooked up. We can get really fancy. And on this case, I painted it with a gray paint. Came back and striped it by taping this off and spray painting the white lines on. Then I came back with some weathering and brushed it in where I thought the tracks from the cars would be. If I needed to seal this, which I really don't, I would come back in and seal it with some dull coat or Krylon flat paint. But I don't know as I want to do that on that. I have a road back here that I did, this kind of a country road, and it was done, maybe we can pull the same trick. It was done with rocks, natural rock. Not sure how close I can get on it. And again, it doesn't really need to be sealed because I used, and I'm sorry to do a product promotion, but I used to work for them and I believe in their products. Woodland Scenics has some stuff called scenic cement. And so once I glued that road in place, there we go, you can kind of see it better. Once I glued the road in place, I was using scenic cement to seal all of this anyway. So once it was sealed with that, I didn't really need to put anything else over it because that scenic cement is an acrylic polymer, and it doesn't really, it's a paint essentially, a clear paint, flat. So you really don't have to put anything else over it. If you're doing a dirt road, a lot of people like to use natural dirt, and I certainly think that's a good idea. I'm not so sure that the ground foams from Woodland Scenics, whoops, crash boom, tear the camera up while I'm at it. I'm not so sure that the ground foams from Woodland Scenics look that good, especially when you get down into N and Z scale. The foam, even in the fine, what they call fine grinds, is still not fine enough. You need to go out in the yard or someplace around where you're modeling and bring in and find yourself, go with your wife, you're going to get brownie points for this suggestion, go with your wife to the kitchen store and get yourself a sifter that has the finest sifting on it. Look in the tea department because the tea strainers are really fine. And sometimes I've got one that's almost 6 inches around that's meant to be a tea strainer, and I strain all my ballast with that, my sand. But you can also strain out your dirt, and then you can sift. I just take the sifter right over the dirt road and bang it a little bit and let that dirt fall, and then come back with the scenic cement and a light mist and just mist over the top of it. Best thing to do is make a rain shower and just start letting it kind of drift out. This is the water, but nonetheless, let it drift out. As it gets wet, get down close and really saturate it. But pretty easy to do. You really don't need to seal it with anything as such other than the scenic cement.
Yeah, yeah. Geno, on your roads, on the Birmingham, how do you do your roads? Do the same way?
I use the foam core for my roads, just like I did on the prior layout. And it's the little thin stuff, and you cut it, and then you can put your base paint on it, and then come back and stain it with I use the alcohol wash, just like I do on everything else, just to kind of do it in layers and different tones to give it that gray. I like the older look, the older worn look on the highways, especially for the downtown city streets and stuff like that. But I don't seal it. I just, once I put my stain on it and it dries, I'm pretty much done with it.
Okay.
And just to let you guys know that there is a recorded presentation on YouTube, Model Builder's YouTube channel and Geno's roads, how he builds his roads and uses byways and highways stripes to do a lot of that too.
Yabba Dabba Do Flintstone, aka JD, asks, what is the best way to weather laser art type kits, actual wood-based structures, to give it that gray feathered look? In addition, how can one achieve the same grayed old wood look to plastic models like ED, a water tower or a coaling tower, etc.? It's a very good question.
Geno, you want to go first this time?
You go ahead, sir. That's got you written all over that one.
Yeah, I was afraid of that. At any rate, I really like their, I think it was Nash and Greenberg put out a weathering book almost 40 or 45 years ago. And in that book, they talked about how to make peeling paint. And what they did was they sprayed the building with, or they actually stained the building to make it look like it was a super old building. Now you can do that with magic markers. I really like magic markers, either cool or warm grays that you get at the art supply store. Do a great job of staining. It's instantaneous. You don't have to do anything else with them after you get that stain on there. It's kind of ready to go. The other thing is you can go to the hardware store, of course, and get regular stains and stain your building, but you want to make it really look old and grungy and whatever. Looking around here, I think I may be able to find one that'll be like that. Anyway, then what you want to do is come back and you get some rubber cement, again from the art store, and you want to take that rubber cement and daub it onto, and I would, on this board, this is a no-scale building, but I would still daub it onto the individual boards as much as I can with the finer brush. Let that rubber cement dry, and then come back and overspray the entire building with an off-white. I would not use white because white really, it's bilious. It's like this building that I have over here. We'll pan over a little bit. This building is one that's in Pat Harriman's book, but it's all paper, but it's also white, and it really stands out from everything else. I don't really like it that much, but it's paper, so I'll have to let it go. Anyway, I'd overspray it with some kind of a gray or off-white. And then after that coat dries, what you can do is they make a thing called a rubber cement pickup. And it's a hard little brick of rubber cement's what it is. And you come back and rub that over the wood, and it will pick that paint up that was on top of the rubber cement. And you all of a sudden have these really edgy holes looking through to that weathered wood on the inside, and it looks like peeling paint. That's how you do peeling paint. You do the same thing with the water tank or any of the other things that you were talking about. They're plastic. Just simply paint them with a wood tone paint to begin with, or a grayish color that looks like the wood is very, very aged. You can even come back with the magic markers and stain that paint before you put on the rubber cement and the off-white coat, and take it back off, and again it will look like wood coming through from the underneath side. Now, having said that, I'll go back to what several model makers have said on YouTube and every place else over the last 20, 30 years. If it's out of wood, use wood. Trying to take plastic and make it look like wood, you can do it, but you're going to have to put your artist hat on, and it's going to be a little bit harder, if not a lot harder, to make it look like wood than it is if you started off with the right material in the first place. John Rance used to tell me, if you're in doubt about what to use what the prototype used. which I went crazy one time. I built a bridge on our railroad in San Antonio, Texas. That was a club railroad for the Air Force guys down there. And it was a concrete bridge in real life. Yep, I built it out of concrete. Real concrete. That sucker weighed about 60 pounds, but I tell you what, you could run any HO engine over that and it was not going to fall off.
I didn't think so. And if it did, wear steel-toed shoes.
Yeah, if it did, it was a big earthquake in San Antonio, I guarantee you.
Yeah, there was an article several years ago. I don't remember which publication it was in, about making little bridges or culverts out of concrete. And I always thought that was a neat idea. I haven't tried it, but I always thought it was a neat idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I always go back with his theory. If I'm having trouble, go back and build it out of whatever the reel was built out of. It really will come out looking pretty good.
What have you?
In most cases.
Guys, have you ever used that? From what I used it once, the hairspray method of weathering the building and then putting a layer of hairspray on it and then going over it with the finished color paint and then taking a little bit of a Q-tip with water on it and just rubbing it off, and then it starts to flake off and you get that flaking look. Have you ever used that?
I have not.
Nope.
I was introduced to it by Ed Traxel on his blog, and I used it on a I used it on a wooden structure kit bash that I did, and basically what it is you weather the building as though you're weathering it, and then you take the hairspray and you layer the spray on it, and you let that hairspray dry completely. Takes about a day. You need a little patience with this, and then you spray it again. You put a couple of coats on, and then you overspray it with the color you want on the building. And then because the hairspray is a water soluble, you take a Q-tip and an X-Acto knife, and you just wet the paint, wet it after it's thoroughly dry with the Q-tip, and then scrape it, with it. You can't get a little too crazy because of it. But what the effect does is it gives you a peeling paint look on an old structure, and then you weather it with powder, and it's one of the. It came out pretty good. That was by Ed Traxel. You can look him up he's on Model Guild. He does some really good work. Jennifer Constantino.
There's other guys out there that are using salt.
Oh yeah, that's another technique. I haven't had much success with the salt. You know what I think the reason why is because I haven't got the patience for it. That seems to be my.
I can't imagine you not having patience.
Really?
Hey, I'm trying to lighten up a bit, okay?
I only have one bathroom in my house. Come and see the patience I have. Jennifer Constantino was asking, hello, Jen, how are you, hon? Can you apply whole chalk directly to areas, or must it be dust?
Well, if you were going to
you got this one by default.
I think so. You could, if you're making streaks like water streaks, I guess you could use a whole piece to draw your streaks. But I always use the powder. It blends a whole lot easier. It's easier to kind of control, I guess, the variations in colors that you're going to be using.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I think the dust gives you a little bit more control over what you're doing as far as dusting, or if you wanted to do heavy powdering. I think it gives you a lot more control on the amount you want to apply.
I think using it directly puts too much on too. It's like using a crayon.
Yeah, it's like drawing a crayon. Yeah.
We've got a retired architect here in town, Larry Deal, that does a lot of chalk painting and weathering. And what he does is he takes and scrapes the chalk out, and then he takes mineral spirits on his brush, picks up the chalk, and then he actually paints. As a matter of fact, the roof on this building is done by him in that method, and he's using about 4 or 5 different colors of chalk and weathering it, and it comes out looking, I mean, I think just dynamite. But that's all chalk and just mineral spirits on his brush, and he just continues to wipe on different colors. Then he comes back, cuts that sheet up, kind of takes care of the edges to make them look a little bit more weathered, and then you glue them on in strips. But yes, I think even if you were doing chalk weathering on the side of the building, the dust works better.
Now, I got a question for you, Miles, and even you, Geno. I mean, I haven't experienced too much with chalks, but when you use like the alcohol and the mineral spirits like Miles is talking about, does it actually turn it into like a paint form, or when it dries, is it still dry like a dust?
It'll have some texture to it when it dries. It'll dry like textured paint, and it'll give it. I use it a lot for rust when I'm like doing rust on cab locomotives in certain like little spots, and when it dries, it's kind of a little bit. It's not as thick as regular paint, but it has that rust texture to it.
What about mineral spirits?
That's one of the really nice advantages that it has, is it does leave a little bit of texture, which you would expect in a rust or a roof situation or something like that.
Okay.
That's good. Mitch Russell, good evening, Mitch. How are you? He says, I'm modeling in the 70s and 80s era and was wondering if graffiti was a normal thing then. I know there was a lot of dirt and grime, but I have not seen graffiti in pitches I have searched. I can answer this one. Yes, graffiti came in the 80s. It was all over the place. It was in every subway car in the New York City Transit Authority. It was on every rolling stock that was in the yards down by the Bush Terminal. So yes, in the 70s and 80s, graffiti was a big thing, and it was quite ugly.
Yeah, I
That's
lived
because you were around so many septicons, you know?
The infinite wisdom of the
You're in New York, man.
I know, New York. It's New York. It's not New York.
New York.
And I want a cup of
We're
coffee.
cleaner in the Midwest, you know?
Yeah, well, they travel through.
Actually, I would say you're 100% correct. When I was a switchman, it would have been about 80 to 85, and we had a lot of graffiti coming through in San Antonio, Texas, mainly because the cars came out of New York. And no, nuts. I'm picking on you. But we had graffiti everywhere because you had the hobos at that time that were chalking their logos. They were marking the cars that they had ridden on. And even if you didn't have the big fancy graphics that we have now, you still had graffiti. It just may not have been as flamboyant as what you see nowadays.
I lived in Northern California most of my growing up days, and I had an aunt that lived right next door, or right next to the tracks of the Southern Pacific line, which is Union Pacific now. But yeah, I would see a lot of graffiti cars on those lines.
It is taking on like an art form of itself. It seems, you know, back then it wasn't as colorful and decorative as it is now, but there was a lot of it passing through. A lot of it, you know, with the just your chalk, like Miles said, chalking of cars and stuff like that.
In the infinite wisdom of the New York City Transit Authority, they won on the number 7 line when the graffiti was at its height. Graffiti artists, what the Transit Authority did was they made up an 11-car train and painted it stark white. And then they built an enclosure for it and stuck it in the Corona yard, thinking a double-sided fence with barbed wire. They stuck it in there one night. The next day, 4 cars were graffitied. Beautifully graffitied. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't have nothing against it. I think it's very. I mean, it's some good art. I mean,
well, now
it's came a long ways. I know that.
Well, okay, we can get into that discussion, but that's for another topic. Terry Tsumi, he has weathering question. He has. So when you want to weather your models, do you basically use the opposite end of your basic color? For example, when you have a black locomotive, would you use like a whitewash thinned to give it a grayish appearance?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, my thing is, you know, the darker the locomotive, the lighter the fade will be, and vice versa. You know, if like on your reds, your dark reds and blues, I'll use a black or a darker black or gray wash, and on the black locomotives or the greens or whatever, it's more of a white or a light grayish.
Okay.
John Lawrence came up with an idea. If you have the ability to do this, and this is an if you buy a commercially already painted locomotive, you're locked into what Geno's saying. What John came up with was and he did a lot of brass painting, he would paint the brass basically with SP lettering gray, either light or dark, which started off with a really dark gray, and then he could weather both directions. He could do the lighter, and he could do some darker, because black doesn't really exist on locomotives after a few years of rolling out of the roundhouse. So rather than taking a stark all the way at the top of the spectrum black and trying to do something with it, he would start a little bit below that spectrum, and then he could move both ways. And I think his locomotives looked absolutely fantastic. But unless you want to completely repaint a commercial paint job, probably not a good thing to do. I would take Geno's philosophy and go one way or the other with the weathering.
Yeah, that would make sense. Because you said that he started his own. He painted it from scratch because he did the brass, correct?
Right. Correct.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Oh, Yabba Dabba Doo Flintstone, aka JD. What methods do you use, particularly Miles, for creating realistic-looking water and waterfalls? Creating the way they look, where wind is blowing across the water, creating ripples seems to be one of the most challenging things to do. And are there any other techniques? Man, you seem to be getting the SAT questions tonight.
What's the address for that show last night? Let's just refer it. Okay, so we got the same question last night. I always tried to avoid, and so did Fran, whenever we did the Woodland Scenics clinics, the issue of water. Until Woodland Scenics came out with their product called Water Effects. And so now I don't really avoid the water question so much. A lot of people like to use either Envirotex or Magic Water, and I think those are very good for static, flat, tranquil ponds. You can take the hairdryer and cause it to ripple as it sets. The disadvantage to me to Envirotex and Magic Water are that you have to babysit them all the way through the set process, which can take several hours in order to get those ripples to occur. The thing you can do is let that water set flat, as it will do naturally. Be sure and seal everything, because both Magic Water and Envirotex will find the finest hole known to the Almighty, and they will find a way to mightily empty your pond onto your floor. So be sure everything's sealed before you start it, just a word of caution. But if you let it set up and get smooth, the Water Effects is, trying to think how thick it is, it's almost oatmeal. It's white and it's paintable on a vertical surface or on flat or anything else in between. You can paint water on with that Water Effects. Now, there are other latex paints at the art store that you can do the same thing with, but it's pre-digested for you by Woodland Scenics, so if you want to do that, you can. I'm not saying you have to. There are other artist mediums that will do the same thing, but you need it really thick and you need it super clear. It goes on perfectly white, and it'll take probably 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 or 5 days to dry. But when it dries perfectly clear. And the advantage is that you can go in on top of that Envirotex or Magic Water and paint the ripples on. You can go in on a mountain stream and you can paint the running water in place. If you don't want it to be on top of some rocks, simply don't paint the top of that rock. You really have a super amount of control over where that water is going to be and where it's going to look wet. Fran, when she makes our streams, or did make our streams for all of our clients that we built railroads for, that's the only thing that she ever wanted to use, because she had total control over where that water was, where it was going, and how it was going to react.
And that from Woodland Scenics, that's a I've seen it. That goes on like white, but it dries to a clear finish.
Absolutely clear and shiny, looks like water.
Right, and you can make the ripple effects in that.
Right, yeah. If you're doing a diorama, even this is model railroading, but we did one time for a museum where we had to make boats with ripples in the pond, and she was painting wakes and ripples and all kinds of stuff with that water effects. Like I say, you're in total control.
Oh, okay. I'm only interested because I'm doing a river scene on my on my layout in the near future. And
for the waterfall, now Woodland Scenic says to take a Teflon cookie sheet and paint the waterfall, in other words, on the flat, but paint it, turn around a minute, paint the fall as if it was falling down, but paint it on a flat cookie sheet. Let it dry for the 2 or 3 days that it takes to get clear, and then you can literally peel it off. It's like a snake skin. But it is acrylic polymer. So what you can do then is take scissors or whatever and cut it to fit the waterfall area. And then you can take more of that same water effects and paint it on the top and on the bottom and blend it in. And it will look like that water then, once it dries, is just spilling right over the edge of that rock and down onto your river.
That's very good. Very good. Chip Frapper, I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right, Chip. Please forgive me if I'm not. He says, on seam dividers using masonite, what's the best way to make them stand up straight on, say, a peninsula, or is there a better material to use? I'd like to answer this question because I recently just finished building my layout, and I have a 10-foot long by 10 foot 3 inches long peninsula, and in it, right down the middle, is a divider. And what I did was I used a 1x3, and I used 3/8 plywood, and I cut a rectangular. I put a base on it, and I cut a rectangular out, and I put them on either side and made a post, and then I put it right in the middle and spaced them down the middle, and then put the masonite right up on there, and drilled and screwed it right into the 1x3s, and it was pretty. The peninsula itself was anchored to the peninsula as well as to the floor with the triangular pieces of the 3/8 plywood and the base, the 1x3 base that I put on the bottom of it, and it's pretty secure.
You're using a photographic background then on that, right?
Yes, I used trackside scenery photographic background.
I watched your video.
Yeah, it wasn't a good.
If you're gonna paint your background like I've done, then a suggestion would be that if you're going to use the masonite, you've got to put something on that joint. You had 10 feet, so you've got more than an 8-foot piece. You've got a joint there someplace.
That's correct.
I hate to keep coming back to Woodland Sinks, but I'll tell you why in a second. When I did my first cyclorama, like I have here, the background that curves ceiling and walls and corners and everything else, I put it up with regular plaster floaters tape and regular plaster wall compound, and that lasted about 2 weeks before it began to crack. So we peeled that off, and then I started out. I had paper mache, aircraft leading edge tape, gaff tape. I tried everything under the sun to float those joints, and the problem was the masonite expands and contracts with moisture. and it tears anything almost that you put on it off. We came back to Kansas City on a visit. We hadn't moved back here yet, and I saw a friend of mine's railroad, and he had masonite up there, and it looked like mine does right here, no cracks anywhere. And I said, man, what did you do for your background? He said, I used Woodland Scenics Flex Paste. The advantage of Flex Paste is that it never really dries hard. It stays expandable. It's like putting a rubber cement on your joint. And when he floated his joints across with that, it worked perfectly. My real suggestion is don't use masonite because it expands and contracts, and it will for the rest of your life. You're better off with gator board, plywood, Luan plywood, the door skin material. Any of the dimensionally stable materials work much better than the masonite, which is not dimensionally stable. And the only other suggestion I would have is if you have to use the masonite, you can't put the boards in between like you're talking about, Bill. Curve it a little bit, and once you put that curve into it, it automatically gains vertical strength. The other thing is they actually sell at the hardwood stores or plywood supply house, if you have one around you, what they call bendable plywood. And bendable plywood comes anywhere from a 1/4 inch up to I think about 3/8 of an inch, and you can buy it with a bias either in the long direction or in the short direction. So if you were going to put it up on the 4-foot piece and I was going to bend it around, I would buy it with the grain going across the 4-foot width. And then you can bend that into almost any shape. You'll have to float some plaster on it to smooth it out because it's pretty rough plywood. But it is bendable to almost any shape. And if you're doing rounded fronts on your railroad, that's beautiful stuff to lay underneath because it's plywood that's already bendable. You just simply bend it into shape, and then you can put any kind of fascia then over it or plaster to do whatever. It's pretty neat stuff to find out about.
Miles, is that the same stuff that they call cabinet grade plywood? Cabinet builders use it because
normally
it bends real easy.
Luan plywood will bend very well because it's only 1/8 of an inch thick. They usually call it door skin material or Luan or Meranti. There's all kinds of names for it. But normally when I had my cabinet shop and we talked about cabinet grade, you were talking, no voids, good centers, etc. Really heavy duty stuff that didn't really want to bend.
Okay.
Phil Wyman asks, what is the best sealant when you're done weathering on your rolling stock and buildings?
Dull coat if you can find it. Getting really hard to find.
You could use the clear. Couldn't you use the clear sealant, flat sealant that they sell in the?
Krylon makes one.
Krylon makes one.
Krylon makes a. Yeah, Krylon makes a dulling spray. I think they also have one they call flattening spray, and those aren't bad. They're just not dull coat. I don't know what it is about dull coat, but it just does a better job.
Yeah. It's got a finish all its own. I haven't found anything that would exactly duplicate it. But it's hard to find now. So
I understand that it's still somewhat available in a jar, the model paints, rather than the spray paints. But then you have to have an airbrush. You have to have a way to apply it.
Oh, you have to mix it down if you do it through the airbrush, correct?
Correct. That's my understanding, yes. I've never done it that way. I've always bought the spray cans, but I understand it is still available in bulk, bulk is in a 2-ounce jar, but but it is still available that way where you can put it in the airbrush.
Yeah. Otto Bedichar. Speaking of graffiti, has anyone used the gel pens to make graffiti on rolling stock, and how do you seal it, and would it bleed with dull coat? That's you, Geno. That is your question.
I have not. I'm not. I have the graffiti in my mind, but when it comes to my hand and going on to the car, it never turns out like I want it to look. So I'm guilty of using decal. But I don't paint my own graffiti.
Oh, you don't freehand the graffiti yourself? You're not the Dog 73?
I am not. I'm guilty of using the commercial decals when it comes to graffiti.
Okay. All right. Well, I've never have. Dude or Miles, have you used a gel pen to do graffiti, or have you used graffiti pen? To do your own freehand?
No, I haven't really. I'm just now coming to big city, big time railroading. My history for the last 50 years has been doing narrow gauge cars. Not much graffiti on the Denver Rio Grande, I mean, not on the narrow gauge line anyway.
No.
So I can't speak to it because I have had no experience in that. It's not my field.
I hear you. No,
I have a buddy of mine that does airbrushing, and he does a really good job at it. And I've even talked to him about doing graffiti with his airbrush, and he's like, "That's way out of." And I keep telling him it's not out of your league; it's right in your league. And I haven't convinced him into doing it yet, but I'm still trying.
You need to get him to teach a class, because I wish I could do it freehand, but I look at the picture and I try my best to get it to look like I want it to look, and I can't do it.
Well, and then on top of that, you're downsizing it to fit on an HO. Could you imagine trying to do that on an N scale?
No.
There are a bunch of guys that go to the Amherst show there in Springfield, Mass. In January that bring cars, and they actually will do custom weathering like that, and they are absolutely marvelous. I mean, I don't know if they're in gangs or they're just like to tag things or whatever, but they do absolutely marvelous work on N scale and HO and O scale cars, and they love doing it because it's legal. They can do it. But, they do an absolutely fantastic job of copying what's out there on cars.
My one time foray into the of criminality was freshly painted wall on the high school that was right across the street from me, and one of the guys were like, "Hey, put your name on the wall," and I put my name on the wall, and as soon as I finished doing it and I turned to walk away, there was the officer standing right behind me. And that was the beginning and the end of my short-lived career as a criminal. Because once he brought me home to Dad.
Then you were wearing the graffiti on your backside, right?
Oh, man. I pleaded with the officer to take me in and arrest me and don't take me home. Mitch Russell asked, when using Cato or other track with built-in roadbed, he says, what is the best way to blend the ground foam and ballast to hide the plastic? That's a good question, Mitch.
I've actually
heard that there are people. I've actually heard that there are people that are actually taking and ballasting over the Cato track and ballasting it into the railroad. And the only thing that I can think of that you could do for that would be some kind of a thicker glue that would stick to the side of that plastic roadbed and allow the ballast to cling. And what that would be, I think it would take some experimentation. I have not done it myself, so I can't speak to it and say, use this. But my guess is that even some of the Eileen's tacky glue, some of the super tacky latexes might work very well. The other thing is you might be able to even take some of the liquid nails products and spatula it on and be able to shove your ballast in. I think that'd be awfully messy. The Eileen's, I think, would be a much better way to go about it. But I understand there's a lot of guys that are doing that, and the track apparently is coming out looking absolutely fantastic when they do it that way.
Yeah. Wayne Snyder asked, new to weathering, has anybody used products from MIG or AK Interactive? He says, for the beginner, is this an easier product than trying to figure out how to do chipping, washes, etc.? I myself have used the AK Interactive, and I actually saw it on Trainmasters TV. The gentleman that did the weathering, I think Lionel Strand had him on, and he actually showed how to brush it on and then take it. So I've used the AK Interactive products, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
I've used some of the MIG pigments as well, and it's basically the same stuff. You get pretty much the same results with them.
You guys are ahead of me. Haven't done either one.
Yeah, the AK Interact. It's hard to it's hard to get. I mean, you figure New York City. You know, we got Train World here and everything. You'd figure you could get it, but I actually had to order it through Amazon to get it. But it's a pretty good product. I would recommend it. Goes on fairly easy, and it gives you the weathered look that you're looking for.
It's easy to work with too, as well.
Yeah, yeah, it is very easy to work with. Very forgiving too. Very forgiving. Otto asks, has anyone used screen wire cut in a hilly shape with a clump foliage glued to it, and then glued the backdrop? Then glued it to the backdrop. If it's used a few feet from the edge of the layout, are they really convincing? Is it really convincing?
I have not had much
You want to go for it?
I haven't had too much experience with the screen wire as far as like gluing it to the front. And I've used it like form shaping on some of the old scenery with the old plaster scenery like we used to use. But as far as pre-forming anything with it, I have not.
There's a guy in, he has two houses, one in Cincinnati and another one down in Kentucky, Danville, Kentucky, Bob Lawson. And Bob came up with, I think, one of the most unique things I've ever seen, and it is phenomenal when you see it on his layout. He takes gunny sack material. There's another name for it, and I can't think of it. One of you guys may know. But gunny sack type material, and he lays it out in a piece, sometimes fairly large. Then he takes the ground foam and he sprinkles it all over it, and scenic cements it and solidifies it. If it's really thick stuff, you've got to do it with more a 50-50 or at least a 75 water 25 glue. Glue that onto the fabric, and you have to do it on a surface where the fabric won't stick to the surface underneath. And after you get done, that fabric is still extremely flexible. And you can take it and put it up, hang it up, ripple it, rill it, you know, all these kinds of things. And he does most of the verticality of his layout is done with that burlap and the green, and it looks like tree-covered hillsides going back, especially when it's put back away where you can't get right up on top of it. But it's a phenomenal way to do vertical green scenery without having to actually plunk things on there. I mean, the brown, I wish I could think of another name for gunny sack. There's a name for it. But at any rate, that material looks absolutely phenomenal with that green ground foam glued on it. I don't do the screen wire, but I would definitely, because that'll cut you and pinch you and poke you and everything else. But man, that gunny sack material looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and it's also moldable too.
That's right.
Yeah, and you can cut it as well as in any size that you wanted to make. You know.
Cut it, shape it, fit it, do it, all kinds of stuff. He does miracles with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, my good friend Mark Turner. Hey, Mark. He wants to know, he says, I'm building a stream. He says he wants to build a stream creek. He says, what is the best base, or can I use any base used for pouring a stream?
You need some type of smooth stuff. Yeah.
I'm back to the same thing. He's talking about the base that he's going to start with.
Yeah.
I just start with plaster. I just start with plaster. I would go if I was doing the finishing stuff. I'd go to the Woodland Scenics water effects. But you can just do the plaster, color it in, make it all look right as far as gluing the rocks and stones, and if you're going to put some cattails or whatever, grasses or whatever you're going to put in, then come back and paint your water into it. But plaster makes it. I'm a plaster guy. I would use plaster. Guys like Structilite. Structilite works extremely well. I would stay away from drywall compound simply because it cracks when it gets very heavy. You're not going to be very happy with the results on it. The other thing is, Sculpt-A-Mold, not Structilite. Structilite is a plaster product, and it works great. but Sculpt to Mold works very well, and I think Woodland Sinks has a product called Mold Scene. They're all similar in terms of they have a pumice or something in them that makes them kind of rough.
Yeah. So if I'm doing, like, he's Mark's going to be doing he wants to do a stream or a creek. I'm doing this river. It's about 5 feet long, because the bridge is going to span over 3 bridges, and it's about 10.5 inches, 11 inches wide. So I should cover that in a plaster coating, and then I could mold and then paint that up before I apply the magic water or the Envirotech.
Do you want to go for it?
I would, yeah, definitely, because it's going to give you a little more, a better, when you work.
A little better texture-wise, as far as the riverbed is concerned. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you really have better control because you can make it, shape it the way you want it. I might even go for the Structolite stuff. I went to the narrow gauge meet this afternoon or this morning here in Kansas City. We do it once a year, and one of the guys there was talking about he uses Structolite, and when he mixes his Structolite, he puts in, if he mixes, I think he said 4 cups or 5 cups, something like that of it, he puts in a cup of brown paint and pre-colors that, so he doesn't have to do so much staining work to it, but the colorant's already in there.
Oh, that's
really
a good idea. That's a good idea. That's a very good idea. Hey, dude, do you think it would be possible if we could do the giveaway splash pages again before we go?
We sure can, sir.
Take a little bit of a break here for our panelists here. Here we go. Well, once again, the YouTube Model Builders, we got a free online e-magazine, and as Dude said earlier, if you haven't heard, this month and what we're trying to do, the youth-orientated to the youth, and JD is looking for young modelers out there, anywhere from the ages of 14 and on up to 18, but we're all young at heart, but he's looking for the youth out there to get us into putting this magazine together, any articles. And if anybody out there would like to contribute an article to the e-magazine, you're more than welcome to. We really are looking for people to contribute any article that you'd want to give to the e-magazine, and we can publish it, and photographs of your layout as well, so we can put it in there. You can find us on www.youtubemodelbuilders.com and click on the e-mag. We have a live chat presentation hangouts every Monday. Is it Monday, dude?
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays we have Barry and Mike Dettinger, as well as Troy and Dude. And on Thursdays and
we got Geno there too.
I haven't forgotten. I saved the best for last, dude. I always save the best for last. And on Thursdays we have Southeastern Rails, Johnny Reb, and we have Geno, who does a wonderful job, and he's fantastic. Troy and Geno have added so much real depth to this, and they brought on some good guests to come on and really give a good presentation. And of course, you're watching the live show that we do every third Saturday of every month, and yours truly and Barry, and tonight, Barry's on with us. Hey Barry, how are you?
I made it. I'm tired, but I made it.
Good. And as we go forward, and Dude took over a directorialship, in which he's doing a fantastic job. Kudos to Dude. And splash pages for tonight, and the giveaways. As always, we want to thank our sponsors for their generous support of this show. Also, don't forget the YouTube Model Builders. We're having the Big Build Contest hosted by IMRRO.com. That's Eric Hall, and it's build a model railroad structure. And it doesn't matter if you're up there as an advanced modeler or just starting out and in the beginning, intermediate, moderate, whatever it is. If you want to join this contest, please do. We want to see all your structures, and we want to see how you build it. For more information, go to our website at youtubemodelbuilders.com and check it out, and enter it. We got some really great prizes. I think this year is cash prizes, Oh, this year, like we've been doing this for years. This is our first time doing it. So,
Well, I want to put something on top of that too, there, Bill. I know that IMRRO.com, he on his YouTube channel, he has a good tutorial on how to tell, shows you on exactly what to do in this contest too.
good point. Very good point. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So check it out. Go there and see what we got going there. And we have Dave's decals, model decals and stuff. Your choice of 2 sheets from Dave. If you win this, he will give you 2 sheets of his decals. I recently had some decals made up by good old Dave, and he's very fastidious. Fastidious, is that the word I'm looking for? The only big word I know is delicatessen and pharmacy. Yeah, he made these up for me. The Brooklyn Lollipop Company, and a few others. He's very detailed orientated. I would suggest if you have any custom work you want done, check him out. Also from Long Shadows Model Trees, our good friend Bob Lacey, 6 HO or N scale handmade trees from Long Shadow Model Trees. If you're interested in getting trees done, this is the guy to go to. Bob Lacey. And who else do we have on? Oh, from our good friends at Central Valley Model Works, we have this 150-foot HO scale punch plate bridge kit. The one that you see on the screen is the one that will be given away, and you can go on the www.cvmw.com and look at their other stuff that they sell. These Jeff and Heather. They do a good job of providing a lot of good model railroading stuff.
I know a couple of guys that have gotten those kits, and they're very, very good detailed.
Yes, they are.
Very good detailed.
Very detailed. Very good product, too, as well. And from our good friend from Bill from Precision Design Company, he's giving away the HO and N scale joint bars, as you can see there. The penny that's located on is the size of the HO and the N scale, and it's pretty realistic looking. The weathering, and to place them on the track gives your track that sense of realism and a little heightened real thing going on there. And it's from Precision Design Company, and this is what he'll be giving away, either HO or N scale, whatever scale you're in. Not both, but just HO or N if that's the scale you're in. And from our good friend John Howard from Highway and Byways, he's giving a road striping kit away, a package of vinyl stripes for your model railroad, either an HO. I don't think he's doing the N scale yet. He might be. I'm not too sure. But he's at highwaysandbyways.com. And again, thank you very, very much to all our sponsors. And how to win. You can go to when listen to me. When Dude or Barry give you the go-ahead and they give you the the password. Now I understand why I'm laughing. You go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com and fill out the live show giveaway form. And then once we get enough of you guys in there, we've built it up, we'll give you the we'll punch the button and we'll announce our winners. But you can go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com, fill out the live show form, giveaway form, and we can start doing that about right now. Would you say, Dude, Barry?
I think so too.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so why don't you guys go there and start filling it out, and we'll continue on with our questioning. And what? Miles is trying to get her. Miles, my goodness gracious.
Can I enter?
Yeah.
I got my building ready.
That's a big build.
That's a big build, Miles.
They say bigger's better.
That's what they say. That's what I heard. Size is everything.
Sign up page. Hey, Bill, the sign up page is now active, and the password is Chance. CHANCE.
Chance.
So I can go to.
Get on my keyboard.
I'll go on my phone.
Chance of a lifetime. Chance, folks. The polls are now open. Go enter. Here, Terry Tsumi asked, on a winter-type scenery, like ice on track, ties, roads, sidewalks, trails, etc., he says, I use CA super glue that I purposely put it on slick plastic like water bottles, then peel off. It looks great. Do any of you have a different method that looks as well or is better?
I have no experience with
And
weather.
the silence was deafening.
Where's the crickets when you need them?
I think Terry, I think you just taught the masters some lesson.
You know, honestly, I can remember when I was a kid back, many years ago. I don't want to say how old I am. But remember it before actually Elmer's glue came out, there was that type of glue. I used to put it all over my hands and then peel it off. And it was clear. Once it dried, it was clear because you could still see your skin through it. It was a color. It was white when you put it on, but when it dried, it was clear, and you could actually peel it off, and you could make like fingers. You could peel off your whole finger, and it would be still glue, already hardened and everything.
Never heard of that stuff back then.
Yeah, and I can't think of what it was called now, but it was, we used it to glue anything, paper or whatever, and so I wonder if it's something like that.
Well, I don't know. I think the short answer, Terry, is no. We don't.
No, I would use water effects if I was trying it, but crazy glue sounds okay to me too, so whatever.
Yeah,
That's why they call it crazy, right?
Yeah.
Has anybody
That's right.
tried any of the winter effects stuff from Wooden Scenics at all? Or that's kind of like road bright, stark white stuff. I think what he's looking for is that leftover, grungy-looking pile of snow.
Shiny,
No, I think
shiny clear, yeah.
Yeah, I think Terry made a good point. He puts the CA super glue on a plastic like water, plastic, like an old Coke bottle or something, and he peels it off and uses it, I guess, for icicles and stuff like that. Someone has been reading Model Railroad magazine.
Sure.
That's good. Jimmy, Michigan. Jimmy, my main man. What's up? Hydrocal or Plaster of Paris? Which is stronger for molding rocks, ledges, etc.?
I think we had this discussion the other night, didn't we, Bill?
Yes.
Hydrocal, about 5,000 psi. Molding plaster, about 3,500 psi. And Plaster of Paris is even softer. That's the technical analysis. Artist-wise, I like #1 molding plaster because it's hard enough to hold any detail and be very strong, but it's also soft enough that it will absorb colorant. Hydrocal absorbs colorant, but it's really hard, and sometimes it's hard to get the colorant into it. Plaster of Paris is very soft, and it certainly will be porous enough to take the color. Those are the technical and the artistic answers. The other thing is, if you're going to use rock molds, always use rock molds. Hand carving, you have to rough the surface or the colorant will not take. Plaster tends to skin over and get very smooth on top, and that smooth coating will not allow the paint or the stain to penetrate. So you must have a rough surface, either from the surface of the rock molds, which rock molds, if it's made off of real rock, always has a porosity to it as it casts up, or you have to start chipping at the dried plaster if you're hand carving and rough it up so that the color will take. Geno, anything else?
I use the Hydrocal, and that's pretty much the same thing that I do.
Yeah.
Miles, may I ask if you would be so kind as to share the story that you shared last night in your former layout of how many pounds of plaster was used in that layout?
I built a layout in Louisville, Kentucky before I moved, but I was actually born in Kansas City, but once I graduated high school, I left for like 40 years. I just moved back recently. I spent about 7 or 8 years working for Vermont American, the tool manufacturer in Louisville, and there I had the layout of my dreams. 22 by 35. Another side story on that was it was way too big. It got out of hand. But nonetheless, I had around 8 to 14 guys coming over every Monday night helping me build it, and they put up about something between 5,000 and 6,000 pounds of plaster, because I always tried to build my railroads with floor-to-ceiling scenery. I mean, John Allen was my hero. So everything in my entire railroad was floor-to-ceiling scenery. You walked in and you walked through the canyons. I had the Great Rock Wall, narrow gauge again. I had all kinds of rock features, but literally the rocks started on the floor and they went 7 feet up. That was my room divider. I didn't have to put any kind of sheetrock or masonite or anything down there. I had mountains that you couldn't see over, so you really felt like you were going through the canyons as you walked in the railroad. But around 5,000 to 6,000 pounds.
5 to 6.
Gosh, almighty.
Can you imagine what that would cost?
No, I wouldn't want to, actually.
Hey,
I
Miles.
only pour about 100 to 125 pounds a week, so when you spread it out, it took us 4 or 5 years to put that in, so it got spread out over a long period of time. I didn't go out and buy it all in one shot.
Hey, Miles, I know the Woodland Scenics plaster cloth. Is it actually plaster or is it Hydrocal?
Go ahead.
I do not know the composition of what the plaster is on the plaster cloth. I do know that it comes from a medical supply house. Beyond that, I don't really know what kind of actual plaster they put on it.
I would say it's pretty hard because it's almost like cast material.
Oh, it is. It's the same stuff that they don't do it anymore, but they used to make casts for people out of that same plaster cloth. I just don't know what kind of plaster they actually manufacture put on there.
Hey, you can buy that stuff like on Amazon or on eBay right from medical supply places at a much cheaper price than Woodland Scenics has it for.
It's just
bigger rolls.
It's just in smaller rolls, isn't it? Or is it bigger?
No, you can get bigger rolls too. Like you
okay.
say that has like a leg cast. Because I remember 20 years ago when we built our club layout, that's what we did. We would buy it by the case from a medical supply place. It's a lot. It was probably about a third of the cost of Woodland Scenic, if not less.
Since I'm still an official demo person for Woody, I can't comment, but man, you're right.
Well, hey, in a pinch, I'll buy a lot of their stuff. I love their scenery materials. That's the only one that I just can't make myself buy. Everything else I'll buy from.
Hey, our good friend Aaron writes, how do you make HO scale fish?
Very carefully.
Yes. I think
The best thing.
Depends.
I think you have to go to HO scale fish store, don't you?
Well, if you want to make an HO scale fish, I mean, there's a fish and there's a fish. You can make it really easily. Hand carve like a 250-pound tuna. That wouldn't be too small.
A friend of mine actually takes paper and he cuts the silhouette of the fish, depending upon, if some people cast their stream at the front of their layout and you can look into it. Some people put their stream where the only thing you can do is look down. So what he does is he cuts his silhouette of the fish in scale, and when he gets to almost the top layer of whatever he's pouring in, magic water, Viratex, whatever, he sticks the fish on that layer, pours over the top, and then when you look in, you see the fish in there. And you think it's 3D, even though it's not.
Wow, pretty good.
That is cool.
Yeah, they look great. They really do.
Yeah, Terry Tsusami has said that the gunny sack material is called burlap.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
I knew the name. I just couldn't call it.
Philip
I'm almost
Wyman,
70. Give me a break,
There you go. Philip Wyman is asking, when getting ready to start doing terrain over your foam, should the foam be sealed with something? And if so, what should it be? What sealant should you use?
Geno, you want to go first?
I could, yeah, you could, you know, if you want to put something over your foam, you could use your plaster cloth, or I used to put a layer of sculptor mold on top of mine before I started my scenery work.
Well, he wants to know if
I take the.
Wouldn't you want to like brush white glue on it? He's looking for a sealant.
No, what I do is I take the same wheels that Dude was talking about. You know, we smooth the foam, and then I go to Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or Menards, whatever you got in your area. Go to the paint department, and they've got a shelf over beside their mixing area called for mist tints, and it's absolutely wonderful because all these wives nowadays, they really like the neutral, natural colors for their place.
Yes.
But they look at the color. They look at the color, you know, and they take it home and they put a little up and they say, "Whoa, that's not what I wanted," and they bring it back, and they put it on that shelf for like $4 for a gallon. And so I look for a brown. That's what all of this paint is around here. This is all mist tint. And what I do, first of all, it's usually really good paint because they don't buy cheap like you and I would. They buy the good stuff.
Yeah.
So I go in and I buy the mist tints at $4 a gallon, and I take that and I smear it. You can see some of it, well, the brown over in right there. That's all mist tint also. And I just coat that foam with that to seal it, and then that's my undercoating for my scenery. So I don't have to put on so much ballast or whatever. You're not seeing the light plywood or whatever through here. You're seeing my base coat color. But yeah, I would seal the foam, but I just do it with paint. It's cheap, easy, quick.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, Model Man Mike he picked on me so much because my layout is almost 2 years old and you still see pink foam.
Now you know the solution there, dude. Slap some brown paint in that puppy and you're ready to go. No more pink and purple room.
Miles is right though on the misprint,
Right.
on the paint, because out here in Lowe's and in the New York area they call it oops paint. I used to work at Home Depot, and Miles, you're absolutely right. I used to work in the paint department. I would get the neutral colors, you know, oh, I need to have the tans, and the next day they'd come back with 16 gallons of paint. And we called it oops paint, and we sold it for like $1 a gallon and stuff.
Yeah, it's dirt cheap, and it works great. It's regular paint.
And it's bad paint, and it's you know, it's top of the line quality paint. Also, sometimes they made sometimes these people. If you go into Lowe's and in the Home Depot and into these specialty paint shops, people order this thing called suede paint, and they don't like it because it takes. You have to put a lot of coats of it on. But I've used it on the railroad and as for a textured finish, and it actually works really good. Normally, if you would go Ralph Lauren, that's it, Ralph Lauren suede paint, for a gallon of paint it costs like $47. But once the person gets it home and they realize they got to buy 16 gallons to cover a 4x4 wall, they return it, and you can get it for like $2. So it's a good textured paint and a good finish. Ron Pierre and Andy Crawford want us to know that Monster Model Works, which is a very good company, wants us to know that they make good brick sheets, the best in the hobby. And they do. I will give them that. I will give them Model Works a shout out. Thank you guys for mentioning that. We had an earlier question on that.
I like their concrete sheets too.
Yeah, they make a lot. Make a lot of good stuff. Newcastle Railroad. Cohen asked, "Can you use static grass on sawdust scenery?"
I would say yeah. I mean, you're really just applying it to a glued down area. So you apply your glue in, put your electrode in, static away. I mean, it should work fine.
So long as it's wet and you can put the grounding screw in, you can do anything.
Yep.
Yeah. And Joe G asked.
Actually, that. Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, Miles. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That tree was done the same way. I put the glue on there, put the grounding spike on it, and dusted it, and I got needles in that pine tree.
Wow.
You can do it on anything if you want
Nice.
to.
That's sweet right there.
Joe G, hey Joe, what's up? Can you use real dirt as a riverbed, then place the woodland scenics water over that? Miles, that's
Yes.
you can.
Dispense with that one quick. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Here you go, Joe. We are on the roll, boys. 5
Next.
How can we make videos? Split Rock 2323, Thomas asked, and this is off subject, but we'll ask it anyway. How can we make videos showing operations on our layout more interesting to viewers? Well,
Hire some nude models. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
well I'm trying to picture that.
I've seen people do.
I don't look good naked.
Little nude models. Little
Miles.
nude models.
I don't look good naked. Filming my.
I wasn't talking about you, Bill. Trust me.
Because I don't think anybody would want to see me standing next to my layout in my John Deere underwear.
I really think that we need to get more women involved in model railroading. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Okay.
You ought to get Fran on one time, Miles.
Yeah, I know it. She doesn't like to be on TV. She'll do the clinics, but she doesn't like to be on live.
I hear that.
Well, neither did Troy before we forced him to do the hangouts, and now he loves it. So,
Yeah.
For he's still a little on the nervous
The only
side.
thing Fran likes about me doing this is I'm not around.
Yeah, she can hear him downstairs. She doesn't have to see him.
That's right.
There you go. Hey, Ron Pierre, let's see, this is really a quote thing. He says, the PDC kits are really great and only take about an hour to build. Also, I use highways and byways, road striping, in many of my dioramas.
absolutely.
Very good. Thank you, Ron. And Ron, check out Ron's channel. He's got a good thing going over there on his channel. You should check out his on his YouTube channel. He does a live show and then he edits it down. So he does it pretty good.
I subscribe to his show. He does a great job.
He does, doesn't he? Well, we already answered that, Ron. You can make. Yes, you can make. Yes.
While you're bringing the next question up, I want to give a plug also to Monster Model Works. They've offered to help us out on the Springfield show and provide us with roofing materials for our kits that we're going to do next year. So he's really supporting the hobby. He really is a nice guy, and he's really got some great products.
Good.
Very nice.
Just want to give him a plug.
Model Railroader asks, would you all suggest NHO G-scale trains for beginners? I would say you'd really have to, I think you'd have to really think that through, what is best for you. And my suggestion, I would go, this is my POV, point of view, I would go with HO as a beginner. Simply because there's more rolling stock, more variety. I'm not saying that N scale isn't coming up. It is, but I think for a beginner, if you're new in the hobby, it's something that everybody identifies with. If you get your feet wet in HO scale and you decide later on that, hey, you know, I see N scale, I want to do that, you know, by all means. We have a gentleman, Junior, who actually saw the movie Runaway Train with Denzel Washington. Never did trains before. He's an immigrant from Cuba. He saw that movie. He went out and dropped $1,000 on N-scale products to start his model railroad. So my only suggestion is start with something that's been established and that's been out there, which is HO scale. And then if, you know, nothing elaborate where you have to spend a lot of money, if the hobby takes over your life like it has taken over our lives and our pocketbooks and our bank accounts, and you want to get into it, you want to do G scale and you want to do N scale or even Z scale, you know, by all means, do it. Keep going for it. Whatever, you know, whatever makes you happy. And that's what we got to remember. This is about, at the end of the day, gentlemen, it's toys. That's what they are. They're toys. We're just trying to turn a little time into a little relaxation from the stress. I mean, we all see what's going on around us. As you see, Miles is standing in his train room. I mean, we try to block the world out for a little while. Can't do it all.
I just want to add one thing to that.
Sure.
When I had clients that we were going to build railroads for, they had been to the hobby shop, and the guy standing behind the counter, usually 20 to 30 years of age, and here's a 70-year-old standing there saying, hey, I'm about to retire. I want to build all of the Pennsylvania Railroad that ran through southern Ohio in my 10-by-10 basement or bedroom or whatever it would happen to be. And he says, oh, sir, N scale's the thing for you. And what he wasn't considering was that the 70-year-old standing there doesn't see the same as he does at 20. And I think scale choice then, depending on who's asking the question, I mean, I don't know who model railroad is. If he's 20, pick a scale, have a good time. You know, there's plenty of stuff in N, there's plenty of stuff in HO. But if you're much older, a senior that's about to retire like myself, be careful what you pick, especially if you're going to pick a smaller scale, because you're going to have trouble seeing it. And you may not be as happy with your choice as you might be with a larger scale like HOS, something like that.
Very good point. Very good point. We're going to take one last question before we go on to the giveaways. And this is from Jimmy Michigan. He goes, hey, at this very moment, I'm trying to solder feeder wire to G-scale solid brass rails. The solder just isn't adhering to the brass. Help! P.S. I'm using ruby red liquid flux.
I wonder how hot of an iron he's using. How many watts?
Yes, or how big.
Yeah.
You're going to solder the G-scale rail. You need like a 50, 60 watt iron, I would say, at a minimum. I mean, I use a 50 watt iron to solder to my tubular American Flyer steel track, let alone a big G-scale
and a
solid
big tip on it. And a big tip.
Yes.
Wedge tip,
Yep.
The problem is that the rail will suck that heat away before the iron can get the rail up to temperature, and then it doesn't stick. So, yes, big tip, bigger iron, big scale.
The other thing, too, is in your choice of irons, the cheaper irons tend to have nickel-plated iron tips, and something that you buy like a Weller, it's nickel-plated, but it's got a copper core tip, so it transfers the heat much faster, too. So a better grade iron would also work. Then again, you could always use one of the big old 100-watt electric guns, you know. Them things will solder anything.
Well, or a soldering machine, if you've got one available.
Or
electric soldering machine.
Oh, yeah. Resistance soldering, right, Miles?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Arc welding. Listen to Bill.
Hey, I got it.
I can see somebody in there with a AC.
Hey, you want to try
especially
and solder
Jim. I can see Jim
wire?
doing that.
Yeah, especially Jim, right? throwing the skull and crossbone mass down and.
Well, and in seriousness, for just 1 second, when we used to build G-scale railroads, because we built several of them, if you don't want to solder, at every one of those joints where you have those little screws, put that wire in that joint with the screw and screw it on, rather than thinking that you have to solder every joint.
Not a bad idea either, Miles. I think that's Aristocraft track that has these split jaw clamps you screw on, right?
Right,
So,
yeah, or you can buy the split jaws from split jaw separately and use those.
Yeah, that's a good idea, yeah. Heck, you could even probably drill, if you want to put the feeder under the rail, you could drill and tap a hole in the bottom of the rail and then wrap the wire or put a little fitting on it or something too. Get nice solid mechanical contact too.
Well, and if you look at the real railroads where they have splices of wire that run between so that they can make sure that they have electric continuity for signaling and stuff, there's nothing wrong with screwing that wire into the side of the rail. Remember, the flange only comes down for about 20% of the ball of the rail. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It leaves a lot of rail open for you to do something else with.
Good idea.
Are we ready to do the giveaway?
Let me refresh here real quick and see how many we have. Episode 13. We're up to 28 entries. I've cleared out the couple of duplicates we have, and so we're ready when you are, Bill, to pick the winners.
Go for it.
Okay. Let's see.
Which is the first thing you're going to give away? Are you going to do them in order?
Yeah. Okay.
I got the first one up.
I think the giveaway one is decals, right?
Yeah,
That's
I got it up on the board.
Tyreek Sykes.
Tyreek.
And then giveaway 2 is Danny Tice.
That would.
What's that one? What's giveaway 2 then? That's the
trees.
Trees from John. Okay, or Bob Lacey there.
Who's the winner of that?
That's Danny Tice, T-I-C-E.
Okay.
And then the giveaway 3, we have Brian Otto, O-T-T-O.
And that is the bridge?
Yes, sir.
Giveaway 3 is the bridge, yep.
Brian Otto?
Yep. And in N scale, giveaway 4 is Mr. Bill Van Lenton. And then in giveaway 5 is Jennifer Constantino. So
now Bill Van Linton gets the joint bars, right?
Yeah, right there.
And Jen gets the road stripe from Highways and Byways, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's our winners for tonight, people.
Congrats.
Yes, congratulations, everybody.
Congratulations to Brian Otto on getting the bridge, and Danny Tice on the trees, Tyreek Sykes on Dave's decals, and Bill Van Linton on the N scale joint bars, and Jennifer Constantino on the roadway and byway road striping kit. And gentlemen, that will be the end of this show. I want to take this opportunity to thank Geno, Miles, for being a part of this show tonight and for your contribution, and to Barry for coming in late, but never too late, and a special shout out to my good buddy Dude for saving our bucket, saving our pants.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for filling in for me, dude. While
yeah.
Well, you know, it was a good.
Ain't done yet.
It was a good thing because Barry, Bill, you might bring up that you're going to be vanished on the next show, on the July show. So there's not going to be no big bill.
I was just going to get to that. Again, thanks, Dude, for saving our bucket. We'll call you the fireman coming in at the last minute. But on the July 17th show, Dude will be they'll be switching roles here, Dude and Barry, and they'll be hosting the show for you on July 17th, as I will be going away that weekend, so I will not be here. But again, I want to thank everybody on the show, Geno Sharp and Miles Hale, for being a part of the show. Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciate your time and your energy in helping out. And to all our sponsors, I want to thank you guys for your sponsorships and for your giveaways. And directly after this show, Southeastern Rails is holding a hangout. If you guys want to continue the fun and all this joyous noise that we're making, go head over to Southeast Rails. Johnny Reb is doing a hangout and stuff like that. So once again, thank you guys very much. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you guys on the radio.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Yeah, happy
too.
Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to everyone.